You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Thank you for joining me here today on our Cabral Concept Show, where we try to talk about all things wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging. And as I like to tell people, whether it's in my practice or whether I'm giving a talk, whatever it might be, is that you really can't have any one of those three without them all being in balance, meaning that if you're not at your ideal body weight, it's because your body's not healthy. It's not balanced. It's literally not. If it was, it would be at its ideal body weight. And that doesn't mean that it's supposed to be stick thin or any one of those things. It means that it's at an ideal body weight. And then again, we all have our own vision of what that ideal body weight is, but an ideal body weight has a healthy waist to hip ratio. So again, that's something that you can calculate. I've talked about that on previous Cabral concepts, but essentially, when we look at that, women have a ratio of 0.8, men below 0.95. And you can just take your widest part of your hips, and then you can divide that by the size of your waist around the belly button. Again, don't suck it in, don't stick it all the way out, just keep it normal. And you can find that measurement. That's just one of those parameters. Usually BMI works in there as well. I know in the personal training world, don't always use that as the best, again, parameter. And the reason is that a lot of the time, the truth is that you can have more muscle on your body and your BMI might be a little bit higher. But I'll tell you, outside of that, you very, very small percentage of people, BMI is actually something that you can look at, something that I didn't give enough credit to back in the day. But for the most part, people should be between 19 and 24.9 for their BMI. And that does keep them within that healthier range. So there's a lot of different measurements, but I'm just trying to tell you this, is that if your body's healthy, it's going to be at a healthy body weight. It's going to be aging gracefully, and you can test those things through genetic testing, telomere testing, omega-3 testing, all those things. And you're going to be able to see how your body's doing from an internal perspective. And I'll tell you, I do my own lab tests. So again, I ran, 50 lab tests on my way to getting well. But the truth is now, I try to do labs, I would say quarterly. And so I'm picking different labs and I want to kind of see how my body's doing. I do my annual blood work once a year. If it's off in any part, meaning like, let's say my HDL was a little lower than I wanted it to be, then I'm going to do things to raise it back up, and I'm going to take that blood work again in another, let's say 6 to 8 weeks. So I'll do that if I find there's anything out of range. But for the most part, I'm just trying to make sure my body now is kept in check. So I'm running my adrenal hormone levels. I'm looking always at my blood work. Like I said, once a year, I'm running my omega-3 levels. I'm doing all those things just to make sure, again, my body's staying healthy. I don't want to micromanage things now that I am healthy, but I like the satisfaction of knowing that what I'm doing is working, and I want to catch things before it starts to get out of range. But I'll tell you right now, I work with so many people in my practice that have subclinical levels of low thyroid. And what does that mean? Well, it means this. There's about 10 to 40% of the American population, at least, that are walking around with low thyroid-based symptoms. And again, a lot of people aren't talking about this because clinically they might not be diagnosed with a level on their actual thyroid test. So again, if we're looking at thyroid parameters, most of the time a doctor is going to run your TSH, and they're going to look for a range of about 0.5 to 5. It's an enormous range. It's too large. Like most things, like vitamin D is typically, let's say, 32 to 100 on most labs. The sweet spot for vitamin D3 is 50 to 70. The sweet spot for TSH is 0.5 to 1.5. Not 3, and definitely not 5. But we don't look at that. We just look like, oh, well, this person doesn't have hypothyroidism. This person doesn't have Hashimoto's. But there's so many levels in between that. Just because you have not been diagnosed with hypothyroidism because your TSH is below 5, and you haven't been diagnosed with Hashimoto's because you don't have higher TPO, whatever it might be, doesn't mean your thyroid's working optimally. And that's what I want to talk about today. Because a lot of times people are struggling with brain fog, fatigue, dry skin. They're struggling with, they just gain weight really easily. They're retaining water. They're having all of these different symptoms of low thyroid, and they don't know why it is, because on their blood work, their doctor has always said that their blood work looks totally fine. So I just want to be the one to let you know that it does not necessarily mean that you are fine. We know this about the adrenals as well, but let's talk about this. If you're suffering from any of the things that I just stated, if you're kind of feeling weak, your stamina is down, your hair is starting to thin, you're kind of losing that outer edge maybe of the eyebrow towards your cheekbone, you're feeling a little depressed, you're feeling a little bit low, your memory's not quite there, a little bit of brain fog, feeling a little bit more puffy, any of those things, cold hands, cold feet, can be symptoms of hypothyroidism. Again, subclinical, not diagnosed, because your TSH is okay, not great, but okay. Well, I want to tell you right now that there are things that you can do to actually test if your thyroid is low, meaning like not optimal. It's not optimal from a functional medicine perspective. There are different forms of medicine. Conventional medicine is only one. It's the form of medicine that we use, at least in the United States. And the reason we use it is because when you're diagnosed with something, then you can put an ICD code on it. You can then bill health insurance, and then you can be prescribed medication. That's one system of medicine. It's not the best system of medicine, but it's a system of medicine. And to be honest, it's the simplest, right? So, okay, patient comes in, patient takes lab, patient's out of range, patient gets medication. Patient continues that for the rest of their life. That's a really simplified way of looking at the human body, and certainly not the most optimal. And since I'm hiring doctors for my practice, and I'm speaking with them, really, they don't believe it's optimal either. They don't believe seeing someone for 15 minutes maximum for an appointment and only allowing them to speak for like 3 minutes because they have to take their notes, they have to input it for insurance purposes. They have to do all of those things, or electronic records. They know it's not optimal, but that's the system. It's their job. They were put in this position. So I don't blame doctors at all. They're my colleagues. They're my friends, MDs, DOs. This is the work that they have to do, right? But I also agree that 99% of the population, in their defense as well, 99% of the population, if they have low thyroid, they just want to take thyroxine. They just want to take the pill, right? They just want the pill. Just give me the pill. Right? But there's a lot of people like yourself, the people who listen to the Cabral concept, who say, this isn't how I want to live my life. I want to be optimal, right? Whatever optimal means. Well, what does optimal mean in terms of thyroid? It means this. It means not feeling constipated, not feeling puffy, not gaining weight, not having brain fog, not being depressed, not having the low mood, not having the cold hands and feet, not all of those things, right? It's the opposite of that, right? It's feeling the boost. It's feeling vital in life. It's having vitality. And you can't have that with a suboptimal thyroid. It doesn't work that way, right? Here's what I want to share with you. There's so much, and I've given entire seminars just on the thyroid. But what I want to do today is, not a lot of people know this. There are four, and there are others, but 4 main heavy metals, or we'll just call them chemicals. There are 4 main heavy metals that when they are elevated can actually lower your thyroid. And a lot of people don't know this. So again, you're looking at your TSH. Now, I want you testing your T4 and T3 as well. I want you testing your thyroglobulins. I want you testing your TPO antibodies. If you can, I'll give you a way to do that. But if you can, then you'll actually see how optimal is your thyroid. And you won't just see it from a conventional medicine perspective. You're going to get to see this from an optimal functional medicine perspective. But there are 4 heavy metals that we need to watch out for, because here's what they do. So I just want to share them with you now. And this won't be a long show, because I want to make sure that everyone gets this information and they can tune in daily on the Cabral concept, because I know that I can be long-winded and I know I can talk a lot, but it's because I want to share this information with you. This information is not something that I had 20 years ago. And I will make sure for the rest of my life that I'm sharing this information as in-depth as I can, so that no one else has to go through what I went through, maybe you went through yourself, that we can at least save our children and their children from having to go through all of these things that we did. Let's figure it out for us, and then let's pass it on. And you can just pass it on to a friend, pass it on to a family member. If your parents are 80 years old, pass it on to them. There's still time. They can still enjoy great quality of life for another decade, 2 decades. I'm telling you right now, and that's not the character of this show, but people are going to get to live longer. They really are. If you keep yourself well now, living to 100 and living to 100 well is going to be something that we see within our lifetime, without a doubt. So here's what I want to go. Let's go over these 4 heavy metals right now. The first one being mercury. Okay, why is mercury so dangerous? Mercury is a heavy metal that, when elevated, can actually increase antibodies. So if it increases antibodies, what does that mean? Well, for those people who are genetically susceptible, remember I said genetically susceptible, doesn't mean that you're going to get it. But when you have those elevated levels of mercury, it could mean that your body starts to produce antibodies against your own thyroid. And that is what we call Hashimoto's. But there's a reason for that. And this is only one. Leaky gut, intestinal permeability can be another. But heavy metals like mercury could cause that. So here's what I want you to look at. Well, where's the mercury from? Well, it's from the environment, right? Without a doubt, we can get it from the environment. We can get it from fish. We can get it from vaccinations. We can get it from a lot of different areas. Mercury amalgams in our mouth, right? That what they call silver amalgams, right? Part of that is actually aluminum. Part of that is mercury. And when they're old enough, like mine were, the edges start to turn up. And every time you chew, you get these little nano vapors. You can't see them, can't taste them, can't smell them, of mercury going directly into the small capillaries in your mouth and being absorbed directly into your bloodstream. We're never told that, because who would share that with us? Doctors, dentists? Absolutely not. They wouldn't. They'd be liable. It's health practitioners who are going against the grain, who are always going to be labeled as crazy or whatever it might be, as just sharing the truth with you. It's the truth. This is scientifically proven, but just not shared with the general public. For fair, and there should be fair, right? Because mercury is a heavy metal that destroys our nervous system and immune system when it gets high enough. What's another one that we can talk about right now? Cadmium. Cadmium is another one that can be found in soil and in cigarettes and in chicken feed, all these different things. Well, when cadmium's high enough, and I want to kind of lump this together right now with bromine as well, or bromides, and bromides being used in flour, all baked goods. It's used in cars, on the interior. It's used in swimming pools as an antiseptic, disinfectant. It's used as a preservative. You don't even know where these things are showing up. And again, in my new book, that's one of the topics as well. Because I don't write a book that's already been written before. I just point people to those books. My book coming out it hasn't been written before. That's why I felt the need to get it out to people. But these two things, cadmium and bromide or bromines, is really interesting. They're called haloids. And they're part of the halide family. And what happens is these are specific ions, and they can actually displace your own thyroid molecule. And they do that by actually filling up the receptors on the thyroid. Now, this is really interesting because when I first started to get into this type of just called endocrinology, the hormones, I've found that your body can sometimes, it doesn't get confused, but it can be thrown off. Because these things from nature that were never meant to be in this large amount, though, because there's inorganic and organic forms, when they're in this large amount, like in all the baked goods that we're eating, I mean, the humans weren't meant to eat preserved baked goods, that's for sure. It can displace, like I said, the thyroid molecule. So now your body's making enough thyroid molecules and hormone, but you're not getting it. And the reason you're not getting it is because it's been blocked. So now that's one more thing to think about. Like, okay, well, my thyroid's actually functioning just fine. My hypothalamus pituitary thyroid axis, my brain telling my thyroid what to do, well, it's working fine. But the truth is these heavy metals or these environmental chemicals are now blocking that normal process. So that's why there's always this underlying root cause. Remember, you've heard me say this before. There's always an underlying root cause. You just have to find it. What's the last one I want to go over today? The last one is arsenic. Arsenic is an important one to look at as well. Okay, so this last one, and I did save it for last, and that's because next week I'm going to do another show on the thyroid. I think it's really important that since 11 million Americans minimum are using thyroid medication or diagnosed low thyroid, and that's just the ones that we know about. Again, 10 to 40%. It could be 100 million Americans, mainly affecting women, but definitely many men as well. Arsenic is something, again, it comes in an organic and inorganic form, a lot of times found in rice or, again, other baked products. It comes from contaminated drinking water. comes from those same water being then to water all crops. So again, a lot in our environment. Some people more susceptible than others, which I'll talk about in a moment. But what arsenic does, and again, this is all scientific research. You can literally go to PubMed and type in arsenic as an endocrine disruptor. And that means exactly what it says. Like bromine, like cadmium, it disrupts the endocrine system. Cadmium, bromine basically block iodine and other molecules from coming to the thyroid. And arsenic can actually break the structure of what's called selenoproteins. And that's selenium being used as an adjunct to help the formulation of TSH to T4 and then T4 becoming activated T3 in the cells. So what we're looking at is an actual breakdown from how the hypothalamus tells the pituitary gland to start producing something called thyroid stimulating hormone. From there, we're making T4. Okay, T4, not that usable, 25, 30% or so. So usable, but not that much. That means even if you're on thyroid-based medication, you're still not getting an optimal amount. What we're looking for is that end conversion, that end conversion of usable T3, which is, again, 70% or so of usable thyroid. Now, it can be converted over to reverse T3 for other bases as well, which have to do with the adrenals and stress and glucocorticoids. But what we're looking at is a gradual breakdown of how the thyroid functions at its normal optimal level because of these four factors. Now, there are others, but mercury, arsenic, bromines, and cadmium are four of those things that without a doubt can start to throw off thyroid function. And most likely, your endocrinologist, your thyroid specialist has never mentioned these to you. So what I'm going to do today is I want you to get more information on this topic. So if you go to StephenCabral.com/593. And again, you can always go back to previous podcasts by going to StephenCabral.com/podcast. And you'll also find this show today, but you can just go direct to it, StephenCabral.com/593. What I want to do is I want to link up a lab test that you can do right at home to find out your own levels. Now, I'm going to give you two options because I know that lab testing isn't for everyone, and I want to make sure that everyone gets well. So you can do a couple things. One is this lab test will actually show you. It's a simple at-home lab test. You're going to do a finger poke. That's it. A couple drops of blood on a card. And then you're going to do a urine sample as well with it. Really easy. Blood spot, urine. It's called a comprehensive thyroid test. Okay, really simple. The results come to me. I personally review them. And then you do a 30-minute coaching call with one of my health coaches to get our recommendations, myself and the health coaches as well. Amazing test. Obviously, that's top of the line. You get everything you need. You actually get to see your levels of arsenic, your levels of cadmium, your levels of mercury, and then the minerals that your body needs as well. I'm going to talk about that next week, so I don't make this a 2-hour show. So here's the deal, though. You get all of that, great. But let's say you can't do that and you just want to detox these heavy metals. Well, you could do a heavy metal detoxification. I've spoken about this before, but a heavy metal detoxification takes only 6 weeks, and you don't have to change your life because of it. You just do a couple supplements in the morning, couple at night. What is it? Craxel chlorella. It's the cilantro that your body needs. It's the vitamin C. It's the biofilm disruptors. That's going to get these metals out of your body. You can do things like a Dr. Cabral detox for 7, 14, or 21 days. This stuff is so important. This is not, again, me trying to promote some agenda. It's not. It's me trying to heal you at a cellular level. And the way that we do that is to get the liver to function better, to detox and cleanse the body. One more thing you can do, and I'll be talking about this more next week, is giving your body the nutrients that your thyroid needs to actually function properly. And that's through something called the daily thyroid support. 3 simple ways to get it done. Lab testing obviously shows you exactly. No more guessing. No more guessing at all. You get to test and see what is going on with your thyroid. You get my review. You get my health coaches, again, recommendations as well. You get a coaching call with them. Or you can do the heavy metal detox if you just kind of want to get right at it. Or you can start using the daily thyroid support after a Dr. Cabral detox. I want you to simply choose not only what you feel is best for you, but what you're ready for at this point. Do you really want to figure it out right now? Okay, we'll do the lab testing. Or I want to kind of ease into this. Let me do the Dr. Cabral detox. Let me do the daily thyroid support. Any one of those things. But what I want you to do is I want you to start to take action. I want you to start to move forward. I want you to start taking back control of your health. That's what this is really all about. So Thank you everyone for tuning into another Cabral Concept. I appreciate each and every one of your listens. Please do feel free to share this show with anyone you believe it could help. Before you go, I wanted to share a personal story with you. The real reason I began to get well finally is because I figured out what was wrong with me. And that might seem pretty obvious, but I went from doctor to doctor for over 2 years before discovering at-home functional medicine lab testing. These are the labs that enabled me to finally figure out what was wrong with my hormones, blood sugar, electrolytes, and gut health. And once I knew what was wrong, I could then follow a proven plan in order to rebalance my body from the inside out. This is why I believe so strongly in functional medicine lab testing and why I've made it my mission to share these labs with the world. Now at equa.life, you can order an at-home lab test or lab bundle for you and your family and be able to complete it within the week. Plus, the EquaLife difference is that you're not left to try to read and figure out these labs on your own. We explain what your lab numbers mean, what they mean in the much bigger picture, and then how to go about rebalancing your body in order to heal. To see our full selection of lab tests or to set up a free lab selection call to find out what labs may be best for you, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. And do remember, we ship these all over the world. To find out more and to set up your free lab selection call, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. That's EQUI.LIFE/labs.